Okay, well, let's assume that you've got your studio set up and connected like I had in the last section. And as a reminder, or in case you skip that last chapter, which is fine, there's no point taken off, here's the setup. The microphone, via a short quality XLR cable, goes into the mono input of a solid-state audio recorder, in my case a Marantz. Oh, and by the way, I didn't mention this in the last section actually, the audio recorder must be in total manual level mode. Manual. If it has any form of auto setting or automatic level control, just switch it off. We do not need this as voiceovers, right? Now, this audio recorder has an analog output. Do not choose the headphone socket. The outputs may look like this. And wire these via quality short wires into a USB audio interface. In my case, the Steinberg UR22 Mark II. That is connected to the computer by a short USB cable. Now, the computer has the latest driver for the particular USB interface box and is the default audio device of the computer. You've also installed Adobe Audition CC, and in Edit, or if you have a Mac, it will be Audition, Edit, Preferences, Audio Hardware. You have selected your own USB device. That is, in my case, the good old Steinberg, to be default for Audition to use as well, both for the input and for the output. So I need to explain levels. As discussed before, if you record too loud or with high levels, you are going to distort. Too low a signal or too low a level, whichever you wish to call it, and then trying to boost it afterwards will often create a nasty and hissy audio recording. The technical term for this is that your signal to noise ratio is too low. If you're not that technical, it may seem strange calling something fairly quiet as noise, but that is what it's called, noise, the nasty background hiss and sometimes hum that ruins what would otherwise be a nice, clean recording, and it comes from recording at too low a level. So levels have to be just right, not too low to create this hiss or noise when you boost it, and also not too high that on the peaks or the loudest parts of your speech it'll distort, clip, sound terrible. And this is very important to understand. If anything in the audio chain is too low or too high, it still causes a problem. For example, these three dials represent the input level controls of the three things in your chain, if you set it up like my system. So 1 is the level in the audio recorder, 2 the level in the USB audio interface, and 3 the level of the computer input in its settings. So if we turn up the input record level of your solid state recorder, it's now recording a nasty high-level distorted signal. And even if the controls of the next two in the chain are set down to compensate, it'd still be a nasty distorted signal, and you can't do anything about it because the first thing in the chain is set up too high. Distorted signals stay distorted. What's more, even the magic of Adobe Audition can't correct an already distorted, overloaded, clipped, nasty signal. So you need to find the correct position of the levels for the average speaking volume you will do as a voiceover, giving you a little bit of headroom. Explanation of that in a minute. The good news is once it's set up, you can generally forget about it. On my own system, all the control levels are all generally left alone from day to day, apart from the input to the solid-state recorder, which I take down a little bit when I have some very dynamic, shouty voiceover recordings where I'm characters for video games. So, for your own system, you need to adjust the input level of the solid-state audio recorder to, let's say, halfway to start with. So, if the control goes up to 10, I mean position 5. A reminder again to ensure the recorder is not in any kind of automatic level mode, or else what you set on that manual input won't make any difference. It needs to be in complete manual mode. Speak at a normal level into the microphone using a good technique. So in other words, the pop filter should be about 4 inches from the center of the capsule, and the mouth should be about 4 inches from the pop filter. Look at the meter of the recorder. It should kick healthily as you speak, not so low that you can't see any lights illuminating on the machine, and not high where the lights would kick into the red areas. So that's fine. You have a decent signal to noise ratio. Now, If after recording we took the SD card out of your recorder, you could put it into any computer and it should provide good levels to work with, without distortion or low-level hiss. But of course, we're not going to do that, taking card out messing around nonsense, as it takes too much time for every recording. It's of course a little quicker to connect the solid-state recorder directly into the computer via the recorder's USB port, via a wire, to transfer the recording on the internal SD card, but as I'm sure you'll appreciate, it's far quicker to record directly on the computer within Adobe Audition and leave the recording on the SD card in the solid-state recorder as a backup. Backup, now you're saying. Okay, why go to all the trouble of buying and installing a solid-state audio recorder when it's just for emergencies, like when the computer loses files or you forget to click record in the Audition software? Well, in practice, to be honest, you'll use the recording on the machine quite a lot. It's surprising how often you, as a voiceover, get carried away with enthusiasm and you speak louder on some sections than you thought you would. And for a few parts of a wonderfully recorded file, you get nasty distortion on the peaks and you can't use any of it. So, in that situation, you'd connect the recorder via USB directly into the computer and edit using that file, the file on the recorder, and not the one you recorded in the computer in Audition. Of course, both recordings could have distortion on, but usually the solid-state recorder will have far better audio level tolerance than most computer audio cards. So what we're doing here is a belt and braces techniques, okay? Sometimes you use the belt recording, sometimes you use the braces. The other advantage of using a solid-state recorder is that it's dead easy to pop the SD card out if you've recorded a load of files and edit on your laptop and headphones on a train journey or whatever. I do this all the time. I record a load of stuff. I've got a session in London and I just stick the headphones on, and on the hours it takes to London, I've done all my editing. It gives you more flexibility. So back to this diagram. You need to ensure the levels are fine all through the chain. For my own setup, and of course yours may be very different, my recorder is on 6, the USB interface box is on maximum input, and the computer volume level shown here on Windows 10 is 90%. And that works for me, but it may be different for you. So you need to experiment, but the good news is once you've got it set up, you're happy with your levels, it'll be fine if you can generally leave it. So for now I'll set the levels to this, and we'll check it all out in the next section.